Okay, welcome back, and again, good to see you. Um, it's very nice. It says for me that there's 25 participants right now, which for me, with my computer here, is just a nice, is a perfect 5 by 5 on one page. So thank you for a couple of. I see some of you coupled up so that you could be so we could fit into 25 squares. But it's nice rather than having to scroll over sometimes and see who's on page two. I hope you hope you enjoyed our sit. We can say that sometimes meditation isn't. We don't enjoy it so much. Really, the practice of meditation isn't concerned with how we may enjoy it or not, right? There is rather just the practice of meditation. We hope and we would like it to be enjoyable. Naturally, we move toward benefit, but sometimes it's difficult and we don't want to do it. And of course, ironically, that might be a very good time to continue practicing. Right? It's like the discipline of a meditation practice is to show up and sit at the appointed time with ourselves just as we are, whether we really want to or not. And of course, we see that in lots of spheres of activity, with groups we may belong to, with other people, with friends. It's once we It's a power of sangha, is that we practice and we show up, because we see that our practice is the sangha's practice. It's not just my practice. And if it's my practice, I can come and go and be really unconcerned about that. But when it's the sangha's practice, then each one of us has an opportunity to be the practitioner that helps guide the sangha, the one that is shows up and sits and practices, so that others may also feel encouraged to show up and sit and practice. We may be having a difficult time sitting, or a wonderful time sitting. Well, outside of that, the fact that we are practicing and showing up, that is encouraging others, and that is reaching other people who feel that they can practice. So our practice is the Sangha's practice in that way. The meditation and Buddhism, of course, has this long history of which we are the living part of the tradition. No matter what lineage may have guided us to this point, or what our training or experience or our interest may have been that brought us to the cushion or to the seat to this meeting today, we are all undoubtedly the living tradition of Dharma practice. I'm going to bring up some words from an old teacher who is long deceased. And yet what this teacher represents is realization is not something that is affected by birth and death. That is what we practice, something which is timeless and which continues from the distant past to the present day and forward into the future. Something that isn't affected by the comings and goings of the hands on the clock. We can taste something of that, of course, in our practice of still sitting. If we really take it to its go deeply into just sitting, to be with things as they are, let go of picking and choosing, to let go of preference, to invite all things to be as they are, that also then enters into a timeless quality, where there's nothing to do and there's nowhere to get to, and there's nowhere to move away from. Our legs may remind us that 20 or 25 or 30 minutes have passed, but the mind that is still and present is a mind that is also unhindered by time. The self-identity, like the me self, is always mapping and navigating time and things and positioning ourself in time and in a world. But the deeper or another aspect of ourself is unconcerned with time, whether it's Sunday or Saturday or Monday or Wednesday, whether it's evening or morning or the middle of the night. It is always and irrevocably just this as it is. And so meditation is inviting and becoming realized about this, just this as it is. This just this as it is a great refuge, is freedom of mind in itself. It's being able to surrender and be in direct experience with things as they are. Now, I often bring up some teachings from Master Dogen Zenji, the great 13th century Zen teacher, and I'm going to do so again today because I've been delving into quite deeply into his work lately. Dogen again was somebody who began practice as a child. He was part of a family that had been close to pretty close to power in that era of Japan, and it was very dangerous to be close to power at that era in Japan. If you were a family that was close to power but not in power, it was very dangerous indeed. Yeah, and he was part of that ruling, connected with the ruling families. But really, a lot of people in those times became monks and nuns or went into Dharma practice because they had no political career available, and it was a way to get a very good education. So even from being a young boy, he was steeped in Buddhist teachings and Dharma practice, and he became well practiced in the Rinzai school of Zen, but always felt that there was something further, that there was something deeper, that he did not feel, similarly to the Buddha, did not feel content with his realization, and decided to go to China to practice more deeply. And that, of course, was no small concern in those days. When Dogen sailed to China, the next time that it was recorded that monks went over from Japan to China, the next time they successfully took a boat across, apparently was 10 years later. So if you missed the boat, it was worse than what happened to Southwest Airlines a few weeks ago. It was right. It was much worse than that. Although I can say that as someone who wasn't caught up in it, so maybe you disagree if you're unfortunate enough to be. But one journey every 10 years. He went with his teacher. His teacher was going to be next abbot of a temple that they were at, and the abbot who was the present abbot was near the end of his life, and he asked Dogen's companion not to go. He said he wanted him to stay because he was going to pass, and he would need him there for that and to take care of the temple. But Dogen's traveling companion and had been a teacher to him as well, thought about it very carefully and decided that the benefit of going to China to study more deeply, the future potential benefit of that far outweighed him staying at the temple and taking care of his teacher's transition. That's a choice, and he went to China with Dogen. It was a long journey. It said that in the journey between Japan and China, that Dogen records that he became sick and had terrible diarrhea. And of course, in those days, I mean, even today, right? It's like that can be very, very dangerous. And certainly in those times, it was very dangerous. And he recounts a story where he has this condition, medical physical condition. He has diarrhea on the journey, but then a huge storm blows up. A storm happens, which is a storm that could sink the ship. And he said suddenly he felt that it went away. His and it reminds me of like when, you know, we think you have a problem and then a real problem comes along and you almost miss the problems that you had. You know, it's just like, wow, if only I had those problems. I thought they were problems, and now here comes a big one. You know, but one way or another, he made it to China. But in Genjo Koan, his one of his classic writings, he uses the metaphor of a boat on water. Perhaps from this journey is where he took that metaphor. But he talks about the self as being like a boat on the water. And he says that in the usual way of seeing things, right, which is the unexamined mind, what the Buddha talked about as upside down mind, he says that if you stand on a boat in the ocean and look at the shore, you think that the shore is moving. It looks like the shore is moving. Right? Well, we can imagine that in our mind's eye now. You know, you stand on a boat and you look at the shore, and the shore is, things are going up and down. And we may know that, of course, oh no, that's not what actually is going on. But Dogen brings that up as an unexamined mind takes the self as being a separate, enduring, fixed identity self, and then looks out into a world where it seems there's movement and other things happening. Kind of like being on a boat and seeing the shore moving. And then he turns that over and he says, actually, if you become still, you see that it's the boat that moves. And in practice, in our meditation, you can see how that there is a movement of mind. Right? Our mind may move all around the place, consumed with thought, commenting on how things are going, interpreting the data that is coming in. So you can see that there is a movement there. Now, if we zoom out and stick with the metaphor of a boat on water, what is really going on? You know, the ocean's moving, the boat's moving, the shore's moving, the sky's moving, clouds are moving, the planet's moving, the solar system's moving, everything's moving, nothing's moving. That's the leap in that sense. That when everything is moving, and we can be confused and see separation in that it seems things are moving in relationship to one another. Right? But the stillness of meditation, the stillness of Zazen, is ultimately to see that when nothing is compared to anything else, when there's no relative comparison, there's no movement. Things are still and as they are. The forms move, right? So we could still see the shore moving of a boat moving, or we might hear something outside on the street, or we might move one of our legs. But all of this movement of form is merely a changing appearance of the vast unmoving whole. Just a changing appearance. The whole world's this way. Now I'm going to come to the part of Genjo Koan where Dogen again uses the metaphor of the boat. But he begins with a couple of interesting lines where he says, when the Dharma has not yet fully penetrated body and mind, one thinks one is already filled with it. It's an interesting statement. If the Dharma is not yet penetrating one's body and mind, you can think that you're already filled with it. But when Dharma fills body and mind, one thinks something is missing. So these can sound kind of counterintuitive, these lines. But if we take the Dharma as something, right? Something fixed, something to be known, the Dharma, it's something. And do you understand it? You know, I don't understand it. I don't understand the first thing about Dharma. Right? Because the Dharma points at something beyond something fixed and known. It describes the whole. If we think we know what it is and what it isn't, we might think that we've got it down, right? You sometimes see that. It's like you can see that sometimes in practice. It'll happen at the Zen Center. I'm sure other places. You know, with practice comes some understanding and some sometimes a glimpse of deeper reality. And then there's a sense of I understand something now. Right? So if Dharma does not completely fill us, we might think we got something. And then he says, but when it fills a body and mind, one sees that something is missing. It's like now that is interesting to arrive at a place where we see that there is something missing here. Now, does that sound in some ways kind of heretical? Everything we're told in Dharma practice, everything is here now. This is it. Everything's here. Right? But we see only as far as our eye of realization and experience reaches. We're always exploring and experiencing this fractal of experience. Right? It's like when I see in front of me, I've got this field of view, but I can't see behind my own head. Oh, actually I can. I just looked up. There's a tree outside. It's like, but that's using a trick at a camera. But right, but outside of that is we see as far as our experiencing self sees. Now, if we take that and say that is the whole of truth, then we begin to fix reality. Dharma practice really demands that we always understand that there is more that we don't see. That we're having a incomplete picture. It's complete like as this. But each one of us appearing in a position in time and space, as we are in our different time zones, in our different homes, we're complete, but we have a fully incomplete experience of that. Now, why does this matter? You know, but the world is full of people who think they know what the truth is of the way things ought to be, the way things are, with certainty, and then compel and coerce others to conform to that worldview. We know that, right? We experience this. But Zen is quite radical in the sense that it turns us towards, we experience and understand and live this, but a lot of this is unknown and we don't see it. So to go on, he says, for example, when we sail a boat into the ocean beyond sight of land and our eyes scan the horizon in all directions, it simply looks like a circle. So you imagine that. This would be Dogen, maybe halfway from Japan to China. You look out and it looks like, what is the ocean? The ocean is a circle from that standpoint. It's complete, but it's also, we know that beyond that circle, there is more, but that is uns. So we can't stick with the ocean is a circle, that's it. This is the way with all things. When we look out into the world, we see things as they are, but we must remember that things as they are always incomplete. We have an incomplete view and an incomplete picture. Again, many people decide upon a complete picture and colour it in and say this is what it is. But that's not the way in Zen. It's not the way in Buddhism. Even his example here where he says to arrive in the center of the ocean and look around really points at the experience of arriving at a place of emptiness or sameness. And this can be experienced again in our sitting. I'm sure you glimpse this or see this. Maybe you see it very deeply. If you arrive at a place where things are as they are and you understand this non-movement, we may feel, I've arrived. I finally made it to the happy place of Zen. You know, it's like the place of sameness where all difference has fallen off. But as we know from experience, you arrive at a place of openness or emptiness or tranquility or equanimity. That too is a changing condition. That too is always incomplete. It will soon shift. Just like the ocean. And if Dogen keeps, you keep sailing, then suddenly it's land ahoy and things are different. So our practice in meditation is, as human beings, you know, saying at the beginning, or I speak for myself when I say this, I'm always being conditioned by life. I'm always filling things in. I'm always building a construction and a narrative and trying to navigate, which can be quite a challenging reality. I think it's I feel blessed and I feel like it's a less challenging reality to be sat here in my home on Zoom rather than being on a ship in a storm with diarrhea in 13th century China Sea. I feel blessed. To be appearing in this present reality as it is. To have this opportunity. An opportunity to be here and experience this now. As it changes. You know, we're always constructing and you know, using the spring moment as a springboard to the next and preparing for what's to come. You know, before this class, I was just planning the things I'm going to get into tomorrow. You know, tomorrow morning when I get up, I've got to, and I start putting my list together. We do that as human beings. We have to. We're navigating a difficult and challenging reality. But what a shame if we're only consumed by the causes and conditions of life and live on the hamster wheel of doing, where we're just doing one thing after another. You know, the gift of Dharma practice, the gift of presence, is to be able to let the doing go, let the planning go, let the construction go, and return and look at the clear ocean, at the ocean in every direction, no matter how it's appearing. To turn in and return to a place which is unconstructed in its essence. That unconstructed essence is often overlooked as we fill it in with, you know, with data, doing, thinking, usually thinking. Words are difficult in Dharma practice. Bodhidharma said, you know, Zen is beyond words, or not described in words, points directly at the mind, realizing Buddha. Words ultimately words can distract. It's very easy to other things and separate things. Perhaps in China and Japan, it was helpful that the language, the ideograms, when you look at the language and the ideograms that were used, they looked like the things that they were describing. So if you see the character for mountain, it's a mountain. It's a closer connection. You see the character for ocean and there's waves. So you're transported there and seeing the character. A little different for us. Our words sometimes don't describe the thing. But we have to use words. We use them as best as we can to communicate. But it's a hopeless task in Dharma practice. Dogen said to teach Zen is one mistake after another. He's just trying not to make too many mistakes. But over and over with practice or with Zen sitting, I try to, in my own practice, is to really to try and stress that point. Let go of picking and choosing, watching the shore or watching the boat. Right? Don't watch either one. Just enjoy being on the ocean. And let whatever movement is there be what it is. Sometimes the ocean's choppy. Sometimes you sit and you don't want to. You've got a busy mind. It's like you got a little bit of a swell, right? Or something's going on. That's fine, just be that. Other times it's flat calm. There's nothing to do. Then just be that. Be that. The work is to just be this, which sounds easy and straightforward, but is often subtle and difficult. To allow and be just this. Because this sense of me identity that lives between the ears like a noisy roommate is always dragging chairs around or making a noise. But we live with that one, and that one is helpful. But the time of sitting is whether there's noise or not, just allow the boat, the ocean, the shore to be as it is and be unconcerned with how it appears. So with practice, we lean into and realize what we can of sameness, of non-difference. What in Zen is called the absolute, or we can be called non-duality. In order to realize that, to taste that, to let that be felt that in the bones, it's essential to stop pursuing after the objects of thinking. Set thinking aside until we can really realize stillness and sameness. When that's made real, that becomes a refuge. You can experience that during the day, driving the car, or walking around the grocery store, pumping gas. You can return to a place where you let go of busy-minded construction, problems, and the endless doing, and return to a place of non-doing and allowing. But these aren't two separate realms or two separate worlds, but rather two perspectives and ways to experience and to look. People who don't practice, it's typical, or for many people, just consumed with a relative. Things, one against another, fixed worldview. This is the way that it is. Those who practice Dharma practice letting go of fixed identity, duality, and introduce a nice healthy amount of space, a welcome maybe, an allowing of not knowing. And to do so, you find that the body mind, the still essence for each person, is here without a doubt, recognizes itself in stillness. You see the statue or how the Buddha is is often seen, or Kuan Yin is seen when they sit and they have that half smile on the lips that shows on the face. Not, giggling at a secret joke, but the half smile that comes from body and mind contentedly expressing itself as an inseparable aspect of the whole. Everyone here is that in our essence. Where we come from, where we go, what it means, no one knows. But fortunately, you don't have to know. And what we can do is to ever more deeply refine this appearance of who we are. What is that? To refine that appearance of who we are. Be who we are through and through. This one now. The one before the name is here, and the one with the name is here. And there's no conflict there. And one of the great supports of with Dharma practice, and what I've appreciated about the practice of Buddhism is I've often looked at, I never wanted to become a Buddhist. I wasn't so interested in Buddhism. I was interested in Zen because I wanted to become enlightened, right? It's like I want to be realized, and I want to realize the meaning, right? It stands that's way, but that was felt like, if I'm honest, right? But what I've found over the years and with the practice is, okay, it's wonderful to inquire into the meaning or non-meaning of life. It's a wonderful thing to inquire into reality, right? But what Buddhism and Dharma practice brings in is while you're here doing that, let's help one another and decrease suffering in the human condition. And it turns out that those are the same path. That to practice is to reduce the suffering in the self. And as our experience and realization of self broadens, we see that self is without limit. It includes other people, community, sangha, friends, family, whole, and on and on. And that becomes more important than finding any meaning. But rather, with this breath, with this time, with this life now, how do I let go of suffering that is inherent in the human condition and bring more ease and benefit and relief to this life that I am? Here in my own heart and with these hands and eyes out there in the world. And there's plenty there for all of us for a lifetime of practice without limit. I'd like to pause there, and I'd like to open it up for any question or comment about what I'm, around the talk, um, or any questions around practice or sharings around practice, anything at all that you'd like to raise up. Please feel encouraged to unmute. If you don't usually say anything, maybe tonight's the night. Oh, I just look and we're a little past 6, so I should close. Adrian, did you have anything before I close? Is there anything further to announce?
No, nothing to add. Thank you, though.
All right. Well, Thank you all. Let's continue to help and support the organization in any and every way that we can. People benefit. Thank you. I benefit from your practice. Thank you for that. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Enjoy the evening. Thank you.